It happened on the 22nd of January between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. in New York on Broome Street, Manhattan. An unconscious Heath Ledger was lying face down on a pillow. There were pills around him. His housekeeper and masseuse were the first to notice the actor. However, women did not call 911 immediately. Why? What happened after they found Heath's body? What is Ledger's official cause of death, and what is wrong with it? And also, how is the famous actress Mary-Kate Olsen involved in the story? It is Biographer Express, and today we will analyze the mysterious death of Heath Ledger and find out what happened in his life a few days before that fateful moment. Let's go. On April 18, 2007, the shooting of The Dark Knight began. There, Heath played the main role of the Joker. At the same time, endless lawsuits took place in the actor's personal life, which led to the divorce of Ledger and his wife Michelle. Heath always blamed himself for quarrels and tried to be decent, balanced. He was ready to give everything he had. But this did not save the couple's relationship.
My life changed certainly from meeting Michelle. I have a family, a beautiful family, and two beautiful girls, thanks to Brokeback Mountain. So it's extraordinary the level in which my life has changed.
At some point, Michelle began to accuse the actor of drug abuse. Because of that, she asked Heath to move out of the Brooklyn flat where they had been living together for 2 years. That angered Ledger, because according to him, he did not use anything. That was confirmed by people who worked with him. The cameraman of the Imaginarium of Doctor Parnassus, Nicola Pecorini, said that for some time, Ledger regularly abused cannabis. However, when it became a problem, Heath gave up the habit. Also, Jerry Grinnell, a vocal coach who worked with Ledger on The Dark Knight, said that in addition to cannabis, he also gave up alcohol. Heath faced injustice, so he had to defend himself. The actor hired numerous lawyers. Friends advised Heath to leave quietly, but he did not want to listen to anyone. The biggest thing that bothered and exhausted him were the arguments about his daughter Matilda. Ledger wanted to take custody of her, but the court decided to give the girl to her mother. Heath became even angrier and emotionally refused to pay alimony, which led to additional court sessions. Asked by reporters about the bitter custody dispute, Ledger's lawyer coolly refused to comment on it. As a result, Michelle's allegations about Heath's drug problems remained unsubstantiated to this day. The only thing we know for sure is that Heath had bouts of insomnia and had to take pills. Ledger's sleep problems worsened during the filming of The Dark Knight. It was the most difficult role in his career, both physically and mentally. Because of the active preparation for the role of the Joker, Heath slept an average of 2 hours. He locked himself in his hotel room for a month to be alone. According to other sources, he had been staying there for 6 weeks, 2 months. Anyway, that time he read all the comics he could. Then he closed his eyes and thought about the character of the Joker. The actor also entered a diary where he wrote thoughts on behalf of his character. It was important for Ledger to find a unique voice and laugh.
I don't want to kill you.
In the end, he found that sound, but it happened during the filming. Heath's mouth was dry because that voice was fake. That was one of the reasons why Heath's Joker used this lip-licking gesture.
You know, he's dark. Yeah, very nasty. He's a psychopath, sociopath, mass-murdering clown. And it's really coming together.
Ledger entered the world of a psychopath, a person who didn't feel the pangs of conscience about his actions. Heath described his character as an absolute sociopath, a cold-blooded, mass-murdering clown. However, we cannot say that Ledger was depressed because of the role. On the contrary, at the end of the day, the young actor had a lot of energy left. His body was exhausted, but his head continued to think. That was the reason why he could not sleep. Ledger took a huge dose of sleeping pills, 2 pills, because the effect was short after taking one. One pill was not enough, and after a couple of hours, he woke up. Due to constant stress and exhaustion, Heath used to smoke 5 joints a day, cannabis cigarettes, until a certain period, but then he switched to pills. Sedative drugs were added to sleeping pills. Ledger gradually increased the dose as his sleep problems worsened. The official cause of the actor's death was acute intoxication due to the combined effect of several drugs. The statement also added, "We have concluded that the manner of death was an accident, resulting from the abuse of prescription medications." However, there was one thing. In the USA, toxicology drugs can be prescribed to treat insomnia, anxiety, pain, or cold symptoms, but the vast majority of American doctors are extremely reluctant to prescribe a mixture of the above drugs to one patient. And here's the question: how and where did Ledger get the pills? The filming of The Dark Knight lasted 127 days. It ended on time, on November 15, 2007, and after that, in December, Heath started work on the latest project called the Imaginarium of Doctor Parnassus. Filming took place in London on Bounds Green Pottersfield at the abandoned Battersea Power Station. On the night of December 17, the hanging scene on Blackfriars Bridge was filmed for 3 hours. The weather was terrible. It was snowing and raining. Most of the film crew fell ill after that shift and asked for sick leave. However, Heath continued to work, and at the same time, he was treated with antibiotics, which for some reason did not help the actor.
Why bother with this little sideshow act?
It's not a sideshow. You don't want to rule the world. He wants the world to rule itself.
His respiratory disease turned into pneumonia. The continuous schedule lasted until December 20th. Ledger then had the weekend off to visit his family in Australia for the Christmas holidays. After the vacation, Heath and other team members returned to London. On January 18th, the last Ledger's shot was filmed. He was supposed to return to his flat in New York for the weekend while the production regrouped and moved. The actor was expected to appear on the set in Vancouver after a week's break for the second part of the shooting. Before leaving for New York, Heath apparently continued to suffer from the illness. Also, the actor complained to his co-star Christopher Plummer that he had trouble sleeping and took pills to solve that problem. Plummer confirmed Heath kept saying, "Damn, I can't sleep." On January 19th, Ledger returned home, and 3 days later, on January 22nd, he died. Ledger had a scheduled massage at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Before that, the actor's housekeeper, Teresa Solomon, heard Heath snoring and his bed creaking outside the door. Around 3 o'clock, Diana Wallison, a masseuse, entered the actor's room. She saw that Heath was lying face down on the pillow and thought he was sleeping. Therefore, she wasted no time, set the table, and began preparing the workplace. However, when Wallison began to wake Ledger, he did not move. Before calling the police or 911 or other services, the masseuse immediately called actress Mary-Kate Olsen. Wallison knew that Ledger and Olsen were close friends. Mary-Kate stood by Heath's phone on the speed dial, so Wallison called Olsen 3 times in 9 minutes. Heath's friend was in Los Angeles, but she immediately ordered her private bodyguard in New York to go to Heath.
How was the meeting with True Line?
Only after that, Wallison called paramedics. It was the 4th call in a row at 3:26 p.m., less than 15 minutes after she first saw Ledger in bed and only minutes after Olsen's first call. Wallison told 911 that Mr. Ledger was not breathing. After the operator's insistence, Wallison performed cardiopulmonary resuscitation, which did not lead to his recovery. Paramedics and EMS arrived 7 minutes later at 3:33 p.m., almost at the same moment Olsen called the private security guard. But they also were unable to revive him. Ledger was pronounced dead at 3:36 p.m., and his body was removed from the flat. On February 7th, the results of the autopsy were made public. Doctors didn't specify the combinations of drugs that led to the actor's death and the exact time of death. Although the Associated Press and other sources reported that police estimated Ledger's death between 1 p.m. and 2:45 p.m. on January 22, 2008. The medical examiner's office announced that it would not release an official time of death. You only need to know that it was a joint effect of the action of all the drugs. Ellen Borakov, a representative of forensics, told reporters.
Police say they are looking at the possibility of an overdose in connection with Heath Ledger's death. His body was found this afternoon in that white building behind me by a housekeeper. Police sources tell our local affiliate WNBC that the housekeeper discovered Heath Ledger's naked body in a bedroom around 3:30 this afternoon. There were pills apparently strewn about the body, and there were 2 bottles, one for prescription drugs, one for non-prescription drugs.
After the incident, Authorities investigated the case to understand how Ledger was prescribed all of these powerful drugs at the same time and how he received them. The first suspicions fell on Mary Kate Olsen. However, how did she appear in Heath's life? After the divorce from Michelle, Ledger did not have a serious relationship with anyone, but it was noticeable that something was going on between Olsen and the actor. In fact, they were casually dating for 3 months before Heath's death. It was small talk and sometimes coffee in the morning. You can say they were dating, but neither of them was interested in continuing that relationship. Their bond was based on partying, and they had the same tastes in recreation. For example, they had the same views on where they wanted to spend time in New York and at what time. They had a similar sensitivity to others. Many also questioned Olsen's reaction to Ledger's death. "Heath was my friend. His death is a tragic loss. My thoughts are with his family," she wrote at the time. On August 4, 2008, Mary Kate Olsen's attorney, Michael Miller, issued a statement denying that Olsen supplied Ledger with the sleeping pills that caused his death. He also claimed that Olsen did not know their origins. In a statement, Miller specifically said, "Despite what the tabloids have speculated, Mary Kate Olsen had nothing to do with the pills found in Heath Ledger's home, and she doesn't know where he got them." At the end of February 2008, the investigation cleared any charges against 2 American doctors working in Los Angeles and Houston. It was agreed that the doctors in question prescribed Ledger other drugs, not those pills that killed him. Regarding Mary Kate, after a flurry of further media speculation, on August 6, 2008, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan closed the investigation into Ledger's death without filing any charges against Olsen. The Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office said they do not believe there is a viable target. How Ledger got the oxycodone and hydrocodone in the deadly combination that killed him is still unknown. What do you think happened that night? Is it just an accident? Is it a fatal mistake of doctors? Share your thoughts in the comments. The Dark Knight was released on July 14th. Ledger's performance received almost unanimous praise. The actor's death made the role long-awaited and difficult to watch. Manohla Dargis noted that Ledger realized the character convincingly, intensely, with enough depth. And the popular publication Village Voice wrote that the film would make Ledger a legend even if he were alive. Many believe Heath overshadowed the performance of his predecessor, Jack Nicholson, with creepy humor and malevolence. Film critic David Denby thought that the role of the Joker could have led Heath to his death. However, Heath's co-star and friend Christian Bale, who played alongside him as Batman, denied the speculation and said that Ledger thoroughly enjoyed overcoming the challenges of creating the role. Ledger described the experience as the most fun he's ever had and probably ever will have. Terry Gilliam, director of the Imaginarium of Doctor Parnassus, also denied claims that playing the Joker drove him crazy, calling it absolute nonsense. Heath was so solid. His feet were on the ground and he was the least neurotic person I've ever met. The Dark Knight broke many box office records. Heath was also awarded numerous awards. He was nominated for 2 People's Choice Awards. A few months later, it was announced that Ledger had been nominated for a Golden Globe Award for Best Supporting Actor. Ironically, the most important ceremony took place on his death anniversary. On January 22, 2009, Ledger won his top award, the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, becoming only the second person to win the award posthumously. Ledger's family attended the ceremony on February 22nd. Mom, dad, and sister accepted the award on stage on his behalf.
This award tonight would have humbly validated Heath's quiet determination to be truly accepted by you all here, his peers, within an industry he so loved. Thank you.
After discussions with the Ledger family in Australia, the Academy decided that the award would go to Ledger's daughter, Matilda Rose. However, due to Matilda's age, she will not receive full ownership of the statuette until her 18th birthday in 2023. Her mother, Michelle Williams, will hold the statuette for her daughter until then. And before we get to the story about the unpleasant details of Heath Ledger's will, we suggest you subscribe to our channel and press the bell, so you won't miss the release of new videos about your favorite celebs. Subscribe, and we continue. In addition to the statuette, Ledger left a will which specified all the details about his financial inheritance. However, that document was signed in 2003, when neither his wife Michelle Williams nor his daughter Matilda were in the actor's life. Accordingly, no one updated the will, so their names were not listed as the owners of the inheritance. Journalists got the information and started making a sensation. Heath's father responded to their questions that the well-being of his granddaughter Matilda Rose was an absolute priority. He added that Michelle Williams was an integral part of their family and promised they would be taken care of, as Heath would have wanted it to be. However, there was a rumor that there was another unofficial will. Due to it, most of the property goes to Matilda Rose. On March 31, 2008, new rumors surfaced. Gemma Jones and Jeanette Fife-Yeomans published an exclusive report in the Daily Telegraph citing Ledger's uncle, Hayden Ledger, and other family members who believe the late actor may have had a secret illegitimate child born when he was 17. Allegedly, the family said that if Ledger was confirmed to be the girl's biological father, it could split his multi-million-dollar estate between Matilda Rose and his secret child. However, reports were published days later citing phone interviews with Ledger's uncles Hayden and Mike Ledger and the family of another little girl in OK and Us Weekly. These articles refuted the scandalous claims, and Ledger's uncles, the girl's mother and stepfather, described them as unsubstantiated rumors, distorted and exaggerated by the media. On September 27, 2008, Ledger's father, Kim, stated that the family left Matilda $16.3 million, adding, "Our family gave Matilda everything." In October 2008, Forbes estimated Ledger's annual earnings from October 2007 to October 2008, including his posthumous share of The Dark Knight's gross, at $20 million. When news of Ledger's death was announced, fans began gathering outside his flat overnight on January 22, 2008. Some of them left flowers and others memorials. The following day at 10:50 a.m. Australian time, Ledger's parents and sister appeared outside the home and read a brief statement to the media expressing their grief and desire to retire. However, not everyone wanted to remain silent. Heath Ledger inspired Bon Iver's song, Perth. Justin Vernon, the lead singer and songwriter of the American indie folk band, said that he started working on the song in 2008 and had a meeting with a music video director who was a good friend of Ledger's, Matt Amato. Amato learned about Heath's death during the filming of the music video The Wolves, Act 1 and 2, for Vernon's group. They stopped filming and Amato started telling stories about Heath. They later became the inspiration for the song Perth. Unfortunately, Heath Ledger is not the only person in show business who died from an overdose of drugs. According to official data, Marilyn Monroe also died precisely because of this, and many believe that it was not just an accident, but suicide. Although there is also a theory according to which Monroe's death was a premeditated murder. So what was it? Click on the video that appeared on your screen to find out the details of the death of a bright Hollywood star. And don't forget to like it, and we will continue to tell you interesting stories of celebrities. It was the Biographer Express. See you soon.